Hello. Today I'm going to talk about 5 more disturbing Gnostic short stories. I'm going to try to stay away from spoilers, but if you like stories with alternate realities, the hero discovering that he isn't who he thinks he is, these stories are for you. If you like what you see here, I have another video on Gnostic short stories, and I think I'm going to probably continue this series on into the future. We'll see. I'm going to start with an honorable mention. The story is Probiscus by Laird Barron. I thought it was okay, but it didn't quite do it for me. I had a few people recommend it, and it almost made it on this list, but I think these stories are better. One more thing, they're in no particular order. This isn't a top 5 list or anything like that, but let's get started. The first story is From Beyond by H.P. Lovecraft, written in 1920 but published in 1934. A scientist creates a machine that awakens dormant senses, allowing humans to perceive an overlapping reality not meant for mortal eyes. Once the veil lifts, reality can never be trusted again. So this is about defining hidden realities, the false perceptions that we have, and the horror of seeing what's beyond the material world. Lovecraft peels back the layer of illusion. So the story is only 5 pages long, but there is a lot of story in these 5 pages. Lovecraft wrote it in a single night, and he never submitted it during his lifetime. The resonator in the story inspired multiple horror adaptations, including the 1986 Stuart Gordon film. I read this years ago in my late teens, early 20s, but I decided to take another look at it, and I did it through audiobook on Spotify, and the actor who played Crawford Tillinghast nails it, I have to say. He is creepy, kind of crazed, mad scientist vibe, but he really hams it up, and I think it was quite effective. But the story is science gone wrong, Promethean complex. One thing I appreciate about Lovecraft is, yes, he loves flowery language, but as far as plot goes, he knows how to tell a story. He is very economical in the real estate as far as plot. Even though Lovecraft wasn't really a card-carrying Gnostic, his cosmos often mirrors the theology. The blind, uncaring creators and a hidden reality teeming with unclean intelligences. And if you're into B-movies, the film is excellent. The next story is Ink from the New Moon by A. Attanasio from 1992. What if North America was discovered and settled by Chinese Buddhists? A secret letter written reveals a staggering truth that transcends time and space, challenging the narrator's concept of identity, history, and being. The title itself is a nod to secret revelatory transmissions, much like the Nag Hammadi texts. Attanasio threads Chinese metaphysics with Gnosticism in an alternate history. This deals explicitly with language as a divine code and the demiurgic distortion of reality. Think the logos corrupted. The narrator focuses on both the physicality of reality, the objects, lands, food, but also on the emotions of loss, heartbreak, and being far away. The nature of being. I survived despite myself, saddened to think all our chances bleed from us, like wounds that never heal. That's a pretty powerful line, I think. Because of the alternate history, it's seen from the outside in. And I would say this was especially poignant for me because of my history living in a Confucianist society. I definitely responded to that. The protagonist begins to suspect that his personal life is an expression of a deeper, older consciousness, possibly spanning many timelines. Chinese ideograms, writing itself, are portrayed as not just symbolic but ontological tools. Words shape reality, echoing Gnostic and Hermetic beliefs about the divine word, the logos, and hidden knowledge. This has rich lyrical prose that mixes historical detail with surreal metaphysics. Like a meteor, I had fallen back to earth, back to life. I had fallen the way stars fall from the remote darkness where they have shivered in the cold down into the warm, close darkness of earthly life. That night I fell from the gloom of my solitary grief into the dark of terrestrial life where we all suffer together in our unknowing. The story is quite poetic, as you can see, but this fallen idea is a big deal in Gnosticism. Sophia, Christos, the demiurge, the archons, man, all these things have fallen from grace. Anyway, I really like this one. Maybe this is the most lyrical of all the stories on here. It was quite beautiful. And while many of these stories are kind of like a tearing away of the veil and there's this terror involved, this one is almost soft-hearted in a way. It makes you feel a profound sadness for the character, and you just kind of feel like you walk in his shoes a little bit. That's one thing a lot of Gnostic media doesn't examine. I mean, most of it is about terror and disturbing aspects, but in this case, it's a lot about the poignance of our experience and the depth of it, which I think is pretty cool. The third story is called Soft by F. Paul Wilson from 1984. A mysterious plague causes the human body to go unnaturally soft, dissolving the boundary between structure and chaos. One man must choose between adapting to this new flesh world or resisting it. Originally published in Masks, edited by J.N. Williamson, this is a horrific inversion of incarnation. It gives this really strange vibe. It's almost like matter as an infection. The writer was a medical doctor, and this adds an element of realism. It makes it a lot scarier because it seems very real. Wilson also wrote The Keep, which is an excellent film, a cult classic for body horror fans. Stephen King praised Wilson's fusion of sci-fi and horror. This actually reminded me a little bit of I Am Legend, the kind of Last Man Standing vibe. The story treats flesh like a failed experiment, a prison falling apart. It's the rotting unreality of the material world. It's like it's slipping away. It's trying to prove that the physical world is inherently flawed or corrupt, not divine. The great thing it does, though, is try to focus on the illusion of normalcy during this very intense experience. But it's a creeping awakening to a hidden understanding, but with a nihilistic twist. The story offers no rational explanation and no help from authority, which is quite terrifying. There's a dark inversion of gnosis here. The protagonist does wake up, but only to horror and despair. I read this several weeks ago and it's still kind of worming in my thoughts. It's a very strange story. Next is The God of Laughter by Michael Chabon from 2001. An investigator unearths an ancient cult behind a murdered clown, uncovering forgotten truths buried beneath America's soil and psyche. This was first published in The New Yorker. Chabon creates a murder mystery that doubles as a Gnostic metaphor. It won a 2002 Best Short Story Bram Stoker Award, and Chabon also had a Pulitzer Prize. It's loosely inspired by Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, and the narrator is a district attorney. Because of this murder, he starts digging into ancient texts, forbidden histories, and cracked accounts that slowly erode his grip on reality. There's a sense of intellectual doom. The more he learns, the less safe or solid the world seems. The story suggests that joy itself is a mask, that laughter is a gate to something primeval, and the title refers to an ancient god associated with laughter, but not joy. It's this kind of mockery, madness, a cosmic irony. It's much like the character, the Joker, but as a god and pure chaotic evil. The story suggests that existence itself is built on a cosmic joke. We're trapped in a deranged system created by an insane god. Does that sound familiar? I think if you like occult detective stories, this is right up your alley. It was competently written and I liked it quite a bit. The last story is The Eye of the Sybil by Philip K. Dick. Written in 1975, published posthumously in 1987. A man discovers a hidden order beneath history delivered by a voice from a prophetic entity outside time. It tells him that the truth isn't just stranger than fiction, it's been suppressed for millennia. So this was written after Philip K. Dick's famous 2374 experience, his Valis moment. You can check out my video on PKD if you want to know more about this. But this was intended as his first expression of this religious vision, but no magazine would touch it. Dick called it his first real Gnostic story. And this is the prototype for Valis, Radio Free Abelmuth, The Divine Invasion, and his exegesis. Start here to understand PKD's transformation from pulp writer to modern Gnostic prophet. It also gives rare insight into him as a boy and a man, and is perhaps the most personal story I've read, aside from the exegesis. In the ancient Greek world, Sibyls were the fortune tellers, like the oracle at Delphi. It's said that they were in these caves and that either they were taking psychedelics or there was some kind of gas that was coming up from the earth that would make them have these visions. I know now why I dreamed of snakes. Wise snakes, not evil snakes, but those which whisper wisdom. I just did a live stream where I dived into why the serpent in Gnostic texts is the hero of the story, and to me it was affirming to see him mention that. Although those mortals in the future are, listen to me, blind, their sight has been taken away by 1,000 years of repression. They have been tormented and limited the way we limit animals. And if you think about it, a blind ruler will require his subjects to also be blind. In dreams, we are inspiring people here and there to wake up. They are beginning to understand that the price of release is being paid by us to free them from the liar who rules them. So he's talking about the demiurge, Sackless, the blind fool. The other immortals said, you must understand that a new cult will arise around a light creature. The cult will grow, but their true text will be encoded, and the actual message is lost. We foresee failure for the mission of the light creature. He will be tortured and murdered, as was Julius, and after that. Long after that, the larger immortals said, civilization will draw itself up out of the ignorance once more after 2,000 years, and then... But I have to say this story makes me a little sad. Dick died rather young, only a year older than me, just weeks before Blade Runner was released. And just imagine what else he might have put out if he had lived another 20 or 30 years. There's also this thought, a lot of his stories that he published are in the sci-fi vein. I kind of wonder if he had spent the last few years just focusing on stories about this, what we would have gotten. But I think he was constantly tempering his vision to fit it into a mold so he could sell it, so he could survive. It's quite unfortunate, and I think that's why the exegesis is such a gift. I wish more of his stories delved into his personal life more. Many of his stories have elements of his life, but they're hidden behind the sci-fi. This one feels more raw, more honest. I don't know, if you're a Philip K. Dick fan and you haven't read this, I think you should check it out for sure. But that's all I got. Those are 5 more Gnostic short stories. I'm gonna probably do a 3rd video in this series down the line. You can watch out for that. If you have anything to say about these stories, you can comment below. But that's all I got. Take care. Have a good one.